Hello everyone, today is the 11th video of my web development practical video series. Today I am going to discuss the first question in the second day of the question list. Let's go to our web development question list, and here under day 2, here's the question 1. Let me read the question first, and then let's review my answer. SLEdu is a famous education website that provides free education to Sri Lankan students during the COVID-19 situation. Students can learn various kinds of subjects by using this website. A request has been made to add a multiplication table as a new update to this site. Okay. As a developer, you are responsible to do this update as indicated below. The interface should be responsive and attractive. Cannot reload when calculations are performed. Okay, those are the requirements we have to follow in order to create this application. Now let's go to my answer and review that one. Here's the answer, the page I created as the answer to that question, and here's the interface. First I like to show you how my site works as a responsive application. Here in the first requirement you can see the interface should be responsive and attractive. Okay, here's the answer, and let me change the screen size of this browser, and let's see what happened to our design in this application. You can see I changed the design. When I change that design to a smaller size, or here's the mobile view, you can see the design change accordingly to that screen size. And when I am increasing the width of that web application, you can see the design also change its appearance according to that screen size. And that's how my application work as a responsive site. And let's perform a calculation. You can see when a user, in this case a student, entered some value or entered any value to this application and press a process button, it should show the multiplication table according to that number he entered. Okay, in this case I use this input field to insert the values to this application, and here you can see I used a spinner wheel. Here you can see a person can insert a number or insert a number using the keyboard, or he can use this spinner buttons to increase the value inside this table, inside this input field. And when I'm inserting any characters or letters, it will not assign that value, or it will not take that value as a valid input. It will only take the numeric values. Okay, now that's how that input field works. And here's the find button. After student click or entered any value, here I entered 8, and let's click on the find button. Notice whether the web page reloads or not when I'm changing on the when I'm clicking on the find button. You can see here's the result. It will multiply the value we entered starting from 0 to 12, and it will show the answer. You can see 8 multiplied by 1 equal 8, and 8 multiplied by 2 equals 16, like that. There are 13 answers to this multiplication in this multiplication table. Okay, let's change this value. I'm changing it to 2 and click on the find button. You saw the web application didn't reload when I click on the find button. You can see the result changed to the value we entered, in this case number 2. Okay, let's go to our code and review how I done that part. Here is my PHP code I used to create this site, and this is the index page, which is this page. You can see there are no many components in these code lines, within these code lines, and here you can see the heading, enter your value here, and here's the image. You can see that image here. Here's that image. I use an image element to add that image, and you can see I used Bootstrap framework in order to make that web application responsive, and here are the two breaking points. I designed it specifically to the mobile devices, that here you can see, and here, the medium devices. Again, I changed the design to the medium devices, and here you can see, here's the button, and in that button you can see there's a on-click attribute, and it will execute the function called find value. Okay, let's see what that means. When a user insert any data into this input field, you can see there's an input field, and which have a attribute, a type attribute as number. That's this attribute. You can see only the numbers can insert to this attribute, and I assigned a unique ID to that HTML input element. Here you can see the ID is value, and when someone when someone entered a value and then click on the button, the find button. Let me go to the JavaScript page. Here you can see there's a this is the function I created to process my to do that process, or process that input, and when someone click on that button, it will execute this find value function. Let's see what's inside our find value function. Here you can see, before that, here you can see I created a new variable, JavaScript variable called display, and assigned an ID, and assigned an element, an HTML element to this new variable called display using the ID tag. Here you can see get element by ID. That means we are grabbing or locking that, assigning that element to this display variable using this ID. It's also called display. And let's go to our index page again. You can see this is there's a div which have the ID called display, and let me reload this page, and by default you can see there's a value new, no number yet. Okay, and in the code you can see there's a h1 tag, and here's the no number yet. This is the box. Actually this works as a box I created to display my results, and this works as a display. Okay, that's why I use the ID called display. And then let's go to our JavaScript file again, and it will store that element will store in that in a variable called display as a global variable. You can see this variable is not related to any function or like that. It's stored beyond all the functions. That means that variable can be accessed anywhere in this file. And let's talk about the find value function. You can see I again created a new variable called value and then assigned the element which have the id called value to this new variable. And the specialty is it's not going to store or assign the element, the whole element. It will store the value. That means that's why I use this dot value keyword. That means it will only store the value inside that HTML element. In this case, we use the value ID in the input field. Let me show you that one. In this input field, this is the place a student will insert their number which they want to find the multiplication list. Okay. Then in the next line you can see there's another variable I created. It's called R, and I assign this is the ajax object. You can see in the question. Let me go to the question. You can see in the question cannot reload when calculations are performed. That is a requirement we have to follow when we are creating this site. So if you create a process inside your web application which will not involve the reloading of the page, we have to use there's a technology called Ajax. I explain about this technology in my previous videos, but I like to brief about that technology a bit in this one too. Let's go to our code. There are two methods, the Ajax technology, and there's a native method to request a web application. In this case, we want to grab the number which will inputted by the user and send that value into the server side. But in this case, if we use the native method, the browser will send that value, but when browser sending that value, it will change the web page. You can see if you send a value to a server side file, it's also a file. So that means the browser will call the URL of that file. So when the browser calling that URL file or requesting that URL file with the value, it will change the existing URL. That means the web page will reload. But in this case, we don't need to do that. If we do that, it will not be very user friendly. It will annoying the user. So that's why we use the Ajax method. If you use the Ajax method, it will request the you can request a specific file in the server side, but it will not change the existing URL of the user. It will send an anonymous request to the server side file, so the user will not be alerted about the request we are sending. So we can send any value we want to the server side without knowing the or without alerting the user. Okay, now here I created a new variable called R and then assign a new object. This is the Ajax object. You can see XML HTTP request. That's the Ajax object. And here you can see, let's skip these code lines for now. And I assigned an open a method called open to that object, and in that method I mention the method we want to send our data In this case, we are sending the data using the get method. There are two methods called post and get. I explained that one too in my previous video. After that, this is the destination URL we want to request, or we want to send the data to the server side. This is the destination. You can see if you use the get method, we are sending the data using the URL. We are combining the data, we are transferring to the server side to the URL we are requesting. In this case, we are sending the details to the index process.php file, and here you can see after the .php extension, I assign a question mark. That's the mark we use when we are combining our data in a key value pair. As a key value pair, you can see here's the key, or here's the name. I assign that value a name called v, and here's the equal mark, and after that I assign the value. Here you can see the value means the value inside the input element. So we are inputting the or we are sending the data or the numeric value which will inputted by the user, and send that value to the index process.php file. And after that, here you can see there's a keyword called true. That means that if you use the keyword true, that means we are sending this request using the AJAX technology, and if you use the keyword false, that means we are sending this request in the SAJAX technology. But in this case, I'm not going to show you the difference between those two technologies. In this case, we are using the keyword true. That means we are using the AJAX method. And after that, I command the object to send this request. And let's go to our index.process.php file. After I explain that the components in that file, I'll explain this code line. Okay, let's go to our process file. Here you can see this is the process file, and as usual we are I created a new PHP variable. In this case, here's the PHP variable called value, and I assigned the values will come as the request in a get method to this variable. So we are send we send our numeric values using the get method, and I call that value, or I assign that value a name called v. Here you can see we grab that value using the name we assigned v, and after that here you can see there is a if condition, and in that condition, these are the conditions we are checking is set value. That means it will check if there is a variable called value, and it's not enough, it will check after that it will check the value less than 12. Okay, that means it will check whether the value assigned to the variable called value is less than 12, and it's not enough. It will after that it will check value is not equal 0. Okay, if those three, only if those three conditions are true, it will execute the codes inside this if condition, and if one of them if one of them are false, even one of them are false, it will execute the next line. Here you can see it will go to the else if part, and in the first else if part, it will check if the value is equal to 0, and if the value is equal to 0, it will echo this text which is value is 0, and it will not execute this code line, it will only execute this one only. Okay, and if the value is not equal 0, it will check if the value is whether the value is greater than 12. If the value is greater than 12, it will execute this echo can't calculate value above 12. You can see those two are error messages, and those are the validations I done in this process.php file. And now let's talk about a correct response, which is this code line. If the values, if there's a variable code value and the value is below number 12 and the value is not equal 0, it will execute this part. You can see there's a for block, and in that block you can see the conditions. I created a variable called c, and its default value is equal to 0, and if the c is less than 12, this means until the c value is less than 12, it will add or it will increment the values assigned to the c variable. In this case, it will run one time, and then you can see the value is 0 by default, and after one time it will assign 1 to the variable c, and after again this for loop will execute it, and then the c value will be increment to 2. Like that, this for loop will be executed 12 times until the value c value is equal to number 12, and within this and in this for loop you can see there's another variable, another new variable called result, and assign you can see there's a calculation value multiplied by c. That means every time this for loop will execute, the value in the value variable will be multiplied by the existing c value. So after that you can see there's a I end the PHP script and start a HTML element. You can see there's a HTML element span, and here's the class I assign a bootstrap class, and after that you can see I echoed the value, and here's a text x, and here's the c value, and it's equal to the result. Result means the value after multiplying the values inside the variable code value by the values inside c variable. Okay, that's the process. After that process, if this for loop will execute, there will be 13 columns. There will be 13 columns which contains the result, and it will send to the client side as the response. Let's go to our client side. Here's the JavaScript file. That's a file which executed in the client side. So the data will come to the to our client side with the AJAX request we sent as the response. Okay, now I'm going to explain this part of the code. You can see the object. I created a function, JavaScript function, and assign that function to the object, and there's a method called onReadyStateChange. That means there are status when we are requesting a server-side file or any file using the AJAX technology. There are states like when the request leaving our client side to the server side and reaching the client side, reaching the server side. Like that, there are status like 1, 2, 3, like that. Overall there are approximately there are 4 status. In this case, the state number 4 means the response is come to our client side computer. I use this command line part to I use this code line part to get that response, and I assigned that response. The response will come as a text, so I assign that text into a new variable called text. You can see if the this function will be called every time the state or the object in the R variable changes its states. It will execute this function and this method is called, or this function is called, an anonymous function. I don't want to explain that one and complicated this video that much. Overall, that function is called an anonymous function, and this function will execute every time the state of the AJAX request change. And in that function, you can see when the function is executed, there's a if condition, and it will check if the state of the AJAX object, our AJAX object, equal to 4, and only if the state is equal to 4, it will execute this one. And if the state is not equal to 4, that means the response isn't come to our computer yet. So we don't need we don't need to do anything in that time. We want the response. So we are checking if the state is equal to 4. Okay, if the state is equal to 4, it will execute this one, and you can see I explained this one. I assign the response text which will come with the AJAX object to a variable called text, and you can see I grab the display element using the display variable. You can see here's the global variable called display, and I assign and I explain this part, and I inner HTML, that means I change or I inputted values into, let me show you that one. I inputted values into the or between the starting element of this div and the closing element of this div. Inner HTML means the space between these two starting and closing tags in this element. And in the JavaScript file, I assign the text. This means the text which will come as the come with the AJAX request. It will insert into the it will insert between the starting tag and the closing tag of the div, which have the ID called display. Okay, that means it will replace this h1 tag and input that that response text in within these two starting and closing tags. So that's how my website works. Let me go and do that part again. I am multiplying number 5. You can see this no number yet tag will, or the text will replaced by the result. Okay, this is how that part works, and I think I explained all the parts in my web application, and that's it for this video. We completed the first question of the second day, and let's see you in the next video, and thank you very much for watching.